Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got the on-track series video for the Czech Tier 10 medium tank, the TVP 50/51. Now if you have not seen the on-track series video before, it's basically where we show some ace tanker replays of the Tier 5 up to the Tier 10 of this line. We just show you those tanks that don't often get a bit of a showing and show you how to set up the line, basically, or how I set up the line. And just show you how the tanks perform at their best. And the TVP 50/51 line got buffed quite it's a little while ago now. And it's always been a pretty solid line with really only one stinker, which was the Tier 8, the TVP VTU, and that got buffed quite substantially, which was quite nice. But the rest of the line was always pretty decent. Like, there was tanks that I sort of felt were really fantastic, like the Skoda T25, which is the Tier 6, and the Skoda T50, which was always utterly fantastic. And then you have the stinker like the TVP VTU. The Skoda T24 that you're seeing here at Tier 5 was always sort of, yeah, it's alright, it's a Tier 5, right? That was just always the way it is. And the T34 100 always wasn't really my cup of tea that much because the gun was pretty annoying for me, but most of my experience of that was pre-6.0. And then you got the TVP 50/51, which was always an absolutely solid Tier 10 vehicle, always pretty damn fantastic. But for me, I always felt it was disappointing purely because I loved the Tier 9 so much. It was such a good tank that I just felt like that extra shell that the TVP got wasn't worth it. And I really enjoyed the Tier 9 a lot better, right? But that's just personal preference. But it still doesn't mean the TVP was a bad tank. It's always a really good tank. But yeah, the Skoda T24 anyway, run the Tier 5, and the Tier 5, like I say, it's just a box standard medium tank for Tier 5. It's okay, it's got decent DPM, it's got okay gun handling, it's got pretty decent mobility, it's got pretty damn good camo. It's just got no armour. It's got absolutely no armour. You do have to be very careful with this tank facing derp guns, because it's not going to be very pretty. They will pen you very easily, and yeah, it's not going to be very nice when they do. So you just have to be careful of that. In terms of a crew that I run on this tank, and on the Tier 6 and 7 and 8, I run Born Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Situational Awareness, Camouflage Expertise, Muffled Shot, Steady Aim, Snapshot, Run and Gun. I run this crew on the Tier 5, 6, 7 and 8 because it's a pretty solid build for it. It makes sure that the gun is absolutely fantastic because the guns don't have the best base accuracy, so I do want to make it as good as possible, and then add to the camo to make it really nice. And in terms of equipment on this tank, I do run rammer, vents and optics. I could run the camo net to make that camo down to like 300 meters of still concealment, but to be honest, I actually wanted to make my view range as high as it possibly could go with the vents and the optics, so I could, you know, at least spot for myself as a medium tank. So far you've seen in this game, it's gone very, very quickly, as Tier 5 battles tend to do. We've managed to amass 1800 damage with a bit of assistance. We're trying to get the kill on the Frostbite, and we managed to shut it down. We used that position at F6 pretty nicely as they pushed quite aggressively. And finished with the epic victory, 6 kills, the 1800 damage, 500 assistance, ace tanker, the top gun, the high caliber, and 1703 base XP. A nice game for the Tier 5 Czech medium tank. It's a pretty solid start to the line. Like I say, it's just a pretty bog standard tank because it just sort of does everything okay, but then doesn't really do anything too badly, right? It's just pretty damn solid. But now we're on to an absolute gem in the line, the Skoda T25. This tank is fantastic. Honestly, it is so much fun to play. I've always loved it. And I always preferred it to the Cromwell because it went as quick as the Cromwell. Its camo was a little bit worse than the Cromwell, but it had similar view range, similar gun handling, but this 3-shot autoloader was fantastic. It dealt damage so quickly, and it was just so much fun to use. I've always loved this tank, and I think it's an absolutely fantastic tank. And I think a lot of people that like their more lightly armoured medium tanks with these little autoloaders will love this vehicle, to be honest. It's a great tank. It does have a premium skin that you can buy for it as well, which looks pretty damn solid. And you can enjoy this tank quite a lot. Because naturally you have 132 pen on the standard AP, which isn't the best. But you have 185 premium on the premium round, which means that, you know, for facing Tier 7s and a lot of Tier 8s, you'll be able to pen enough of them and be able to do damage, which is decent. But obviously you have 110 damage on your standard round, which is a little bit low, so when you are facing those bottom tier games, you do feel like you're just sort of cutting people a little bit rather than actually doing any serious damage. But like I say, if people, it can work to your favour, really. It can work to your advantage, because people don't really pay attention to you until they realise, oh wait, that's 300 health gone. And then before they react to it again, you've put in another 300 damage. So it can be pretty good for that. And in terms of equipment on this tank, it's where it changes up a little bit. I do run optics, camo net, and vents. And I do that because optics and vents, obviously, I'll make my view range better, make everything about the tank as good as possible. And then the camo net, just to add to that decent camo rating that we have with all those skills and stuff like that. And you can make yourself a little bit more stealthy. It helps you to stay a little bit more unspotted when you're being able to dump clips on people. So we're in this game on highway, and we're playing a pretty typical highway game. And that is that their team's pretty much... Ow, that hurt artillery. God damn you, bro. And yeah, we are very lucky there that the artillery didn't actually pen us and do some serious damage for saying it hit us flush. Yeah, we're playing a pretty typical game on highway, because their team, for the most part, is camping the 8 line, 9 line on those ridges. And our team, like I have pushed, you know, into the town a little bit, but they're all sitting on the ridges behind me as well, which means those guys that I'm spotting are starting to get shot, and it's feeding me assistance. Like, this tank is coming in on me, this T2485. I was expecting him to blow up a little bit quicker than he... Well, take a lot more hits than he actually did. But he comes in on us, and we managed to get a couple of shots in. I'm thinking, oh god, I'm probably going to die here. He manages to get another shot into us. I'm just going to avoid ramming him. But luckily enough, we just out-reload him with this autoloader, shut him down. We've got 1 shell left. And I was thinking, oh, I've got to make sure I shut this Vanguard down, otherwise I'm dead. But fortunately enough, he seems to be reloading, and he gets shut down. We get lucky at the artillery misses as well. And, yeah... We're just going to poke again to try and see if we can spot stuff for our team. I mean, we're at 1,400 damage so far with 2.3k assistance, which is nice. We've only got 9 shells of standard left, so because we're going to be facing quite a few tier 8s, I was thinking, you know what, I'm going to load premium rounds, because I want to make sure I'm going to pen them, and we want to make sure that we're going to be able to do the best we've got. Plus, we don't have many chances left, because obviously we've got 29 hit points. We can't take chances. So now the Vanguard, or the LC even 90 is pushing forward. It's like, okay, let this guy spot a bit and get some shots in if we can. We get a nice 3 shots there into the Huntsman. Fortunately enough, the Skoda T25 over there actually missed the shot on us. The SU-152 is actually starting to push up onto the ridge, so it's like, okay, let's see if we can get a nice few shots into him. Get 1 in, 2... Oh, well, that missed, and then the 3rd one missed. But you can see how fast this tank spits out the shells. It's a precursor, really, to the tier 9 and 10 at tier 6. Because you do deal damage so quickly, and it's just one of those things. It's like having that cheery gun, where it's just a kind of a nice meme, but you're not kind of useless for the most part, like the cheery, where, you know, you do have that pretty decent camo, you have decent enough gun handling, and you have absolutely excellent mobility at 60 kilometers an hour for the tank. So I'm deciding now, okay, my team are pushed onto that left-hand side at A8. That means that there's nothing on the left that can shoot me. I'm going to push up to this ridge here and start shooting into this SU-152. So we push over to get some shots of the SU-152. I'm trying to get that track off of the SU-152 so I can hopefully get some assistance on his tracks. We were spotting the artillery there, so he ends up getting hit. This guy starts poking over. I'm like, well, I can get one more shot clip into him before he gets to fire. And unfortunately, just as we do that, the Skoda T25 comes over and shuts us down. But we do finish with the Ace tanker, the 2.1k base XP, 2.5k damage, and 2.5k assistance. So that's 5k combined for a tier 6 medium tank, which is pretty damn solid. I mean, 2.1k base is really nice for a tier 6 tank in a tier 8 game. Let's say the Skoda T25 is absolutely fantastic, and yeah, if you use its mobility to great effect to flank opponents really easily and just start pummeling them with that auto-loading gun, it can be a great time for you. So now we're on to the T34 100. Now, this is basically the T34-85, which is basically a tier 5 chassis at tier 7 with a 100mm gun. Now, the 100mm gun is pretty damn nice, but for me, I always felt it was a little bit awkward because it has 175 pen on its standard AP, 250 on the heat round, by the way, which is absolutely fine. That's fantastic. You'll pen everything you're going to face. The reload is okay. It's pretty decent. What I always felt was awkward was that this tank's mobility is sort of... It's like the T34, right? It's okay. But there's a lot out there that are better. You don't particularly have very good camo. The gun handling can be very troll and miss a lot of shots, which is annoying. And you only have 5 degrees of gun depression, which again adds to being very, very inflexible on ridge lines and stuff like that, and can lead to annoying times. And can lead to just being very awkward again when you are facing those higher tier tanks, because you can't really get hull down on a ridge line, and you kind of have to find those more exposed positions to be able to get your shots off because of the 5 degrees of gun depression. Now, the tank did receive some love in the reforge, if only really minor love, to be perfectly honest. And that was they basically buffed the stock gun on the tank. They buffed the stock 85mm to make it have 146 pen on its standard rounds and 194 pen on the premium rounds, which is actually fairly standard for a lot of the tanks at the tier that are mediums. So it's not too bad, but that is the stock gun. So they made it just basically the grind a little bit nicer. In terms of equipment on this tank, I do run rammer, vents, and optics. If you wanted to, you could take the vents off and put a camo net on again to make it down to like 300, nearly 300 meters still concealment. Totally up to you how you want to set it up. And I do it because I just want to make my DPM, aim time, and accuracy that little bit better with the vents, but also be able to spot for myself naturally with optics. So far in this game, we're up to 1800 damage with 1300 assistance. We pushed very aggressively to that rocket E4. Doesn't always work out, but we were quite nicely top tier in this game, so I felt a bit safer doing it. And so far, we managed to get around this turretless TD, which is the 88. We shut down the 88, and now we're going to push into their artillery. Naturally, most of these, all these replays that you're going to see in this video are from before the artillery changes, so you can see the hit points are a lot different. And I see that M12, and I'm like, oh god, don't do it, M12. Please don't do it. Thankfully, he doesn't get a shot at us. We do try and shut him down, but he get down, Mr. President, says the SU-122A. He gets in front of the M12, takes the shell, and we shut down both artillery there, although we didn't mean to shoot the first one. We meant to kill the M12 there, because he was looking at us, and I was thinking, oh god, he's going to kill me. But fortunately enough, we managed to survive that encounter there, and now we're behind the enemy team that's still struggling to get through our Valley team, essentially, the Valley on our team. And, oh, that poor Tiger 1 is really stock, that poor guy. But now we're behind them. These guys are not going to even look to shoot at us. This is basically free damage. And we're up to 3.5k damage with 1600 assistance. This Tiger 1's actually turned around, but we shut him down. We've only got heat left, which means we're going to easily go through these guys. And we're just looking for the shot into the OI, and unfortunately get shut down by the Dreadnought before we get there. And there's one heavy tank left on the enemy team. And it's like, oh, where is he? And there he gets spotted on the opposite side of the map. It's an OI experimental. And we do have team in the Valley. And I'm thinking, likelihood of me getting there to get this kill, probably highly unlikely. Someone like the artillery will probably go and shotgun him. But if most of my team's down the 2 line, we may as well go down the Lake Road to see if we can get behind this OI before my team finds him. But unfortunately, the Dreadnought finds him and shuts him down. It is what it is, but we do finish the game with a nice total for the T24 100, which can be a bit of an awkward tank. Finished with 5 kills, 3.5k damage, 1662 assistance, ace tanker, the Pascucci's high caliber, sniper medal, 2070 base XP. A really nice game for the T34 100. Pretty good matchup for it, though. Like I say, it can be just a bit of an awkward tank because of that gun depression. And being 54 kilometers an hour, it's decent, but it has no armor. Awkward gun depression. The gun can be pretty derpy at times. If you fully aim your shots, naturally, they'll be pretty decent, but you can't really snapshot in it, which is annoying. And there's quite a few tanks that can, which will have no problem even penning you either, which is obviously a problem. But now we're on to the T8 of the line, the TVP VTU, which was an absolute stinker of a tank. It was easily the worst tank in the line. It was absolute trash. And I'm not kidding, it was absolute trash because it had like 5 degrees of gun depression. It was big as a house, so it was really awkward to use the gun. The DPM wasn't even that great on the 105. On the 88 it was okay, but it was still awkward to use because of the gun depression. Let's say you're as big as a house, you're made of spitting Kleenex, and you're made of ammo racks. So it was really easy to pen. You got ammo racked all the time. You really struggle to use the gun in a lot of situations. You have not really got the best camo in the universe, so you got spotted all the time. And it was a bit of a pain. 6.0 helped it a little bit because it made the gun less derpy. And then they buffed it. So what did they buff on the TVP VTU? So well, they buffed a lot on the stock bit of the tank, which I couldn't quite include in this paragraph you're going to see. But we're going to look at what it is what it's like when you get the tank fully upgraded. So when you get the tank fully upgraded, they gave it more frontal armour on the turret from 65 to 85, which doesn't really do much. Same as the side arm on the turret went from 40 to 65. That kind of does help you stop getting overmatched on the side of the turret. Gave you 380 metres view range instead of 370, which is great, actually. That's pretty damn decent. The 100mm gun went from 8-second reload to a 7.7-second reload with a better accuracy of 0.36. That's on the stock 100mm. On the 105mm, which has more alpha, it had a penetration buff from 188 to 208 and 235 premium pen to 246. The gun depression went from 5 degrees to 8 degrees of gun depression. Massively different. Massive change. Fantastic for the 105. Has more alpha, which is nice, but has less DPM than this 88mm that you're seeing in this replay. But they did buff the reload from 10.5 seconds to 10 seconds. The top 88 went from 0.35 accuracy to 0.32. The penetration went from 194 to 202, 237 pen to 242 on the premium rounds. The reload went from 6.8 seconds to 6.5 seconds. It does have 8 degrees of gun depression with this turret that they changed from the stock turret to the top turret, which is nice, which is why it's changed only on the 105 because it had less. The dispersion during the turret went from 0.12 to 0.1, and they gave you far more ammo. So your DPM went a bit higher, it got way more accurate, it got more penetration, and it got more view range and gun depression, because previously when you used the top turret on this tank, you got way more view range from like 350 to 370, sorry, but you got way less you got way more gun depression on this 88. But if you use the top turret with, you know, more view range, you lost the gun depression, which was really annoying. But now they've changed it. You've got more gun depression, you've got more DPM, better accuracy. This tank is a lot better because the gun is usable. And you can get the gun down and it's really nice. And the DPM is fantastic. So if you use it as that flanking medium tank, you're going to have a pretty damn nice time. And I think it's a hell of a lot better than it used to be. And it's a little bit more enjoyable. You do have to be careful though, because you still will get ammo racked. But your flexibility with the gun depression and the DPM and the accuracy of the tank not being derpy anymore, it's great. And you do have the choice of using the 88mm or the 105, which means you've got flexibility in your gun choice, which is always great. I would probably recommend the 88mm because I think that's probably better to use, but it's down to you totally there. So in terms of this game on Great Wall, we are bottom tier, and so far almost 3.5k damage. Fortunately for me, this Jagdpanzer had already fired at the Emil 2, so we managed to get a couple of shots into him. We're just going after the other guy, the Waffle E100. We couldn't quite get there to get any more shots at him. We're getting a couple of HE rounds in earlier on in him, which is 295 pen, which is decent. And 3.5k damage in the tier 8 game. Tier 10's game, sorry. Pretty damn solid for this tank. As it's a lot nicer to use and a lot friendlier to use than it used to be because of those gun buffs. It just means that the gun is actually a bit more reliable. And you have, let's say, you have the choice of using 320 Alpha or 240 Alpha. It's completely down to you. I do think this is probably the better gun to use because of the accuracy and stuff like that, but it's down, again, it's down to you. It might be better to use the 105 for some people because you don't have to poke out as much to, you know, you can deal with 320 Alpha and pull back. While you have a longer reload, it gives people a bit more time to forget about you. It's totally down to your playstyle. By the way, in terms of equipment on this tank, I do run rammer, vertistabs and optics. Vertistabs to make the gun a lot nicer, rammer to make the DPM better, and optics to make the view range better. To be honest, because that's a better loadout for the 105, you might be better with this 88 to run a camo net to knock your camo rating down a lot more, or run vents to make everything about the gun better or the tank better. It's up to you, really. Or run safe stowage because of the ammo rack problem. But you do finish with the victory, 3.9k damage, ace tanker, Confederate, 1833 base XP. A really, really nice game in a bottom tier matchup for this tank. So yeah, like I say, you could run the written force ammo rack because it is a major problem when you play this tank, and the fact that you do get ammo racked a lot, and it can be very frustrating. But now we're on to the tier 9, which arguably is one of the best tank in the line. Absolutely fantastic. It's always been an absolutely worldy of a tank. I've always loved it. It's just been fantastic at what it does. Hell of a lot of fun. You deal a lot of damage, and then you can get out really quickly, and people just don't know what's hit them. And that surprise element has always been a great thing for the tank. It did actually receive some buffs in the Reforge, and that is its stock gun got better reload, which is nice. It made the stock gun, again, a little bit nicer to use. The other 100mm got a little bit of love as well, which I think has an autoloader in itself. And then the the top gun got an ammo buff, so it got an extra clip of rounds. But the big thing for this tank is they buffed the speed of the tank. So it went from 50 kilometers an hour on its top speed to 55, which is fantastic. It was like the tier 10, and it really helped to, you know, go after tanks, really. And yeah, you can buff it up to have 60 kilometers an hour if you use the traction system, which is fantastic in itself. And that top speed buff is absolutely fantastic. It means that instead of, like I say, instead of having the traction system, you can go from 55, you can now go at 60 with the traction system, which is great, just like the tier 10, and is, yeah, utterly fantastic, really. And I really like that speed buff. And it really made a fantastic tank even better. So in terms of a crew on the TVP, on the Skoda T50, sorry, we do run Born Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Track Mechanic, Situational Awareness, Steady Aim, Snapshot, Run and Gun, and Camouflage Expertise. This tank doesn't have that good camo, so I do make it a little bit better with Camouflage Expertise, but it's still not that great. But I just give it that little bit of help so I can hopefully stay unspotted a little bit more. But what I do mainly is make sure that this gun is as good as possible so I can use this absolutely fantastic DPM, this fantastic clip output, and this fantastic reload on this tank to really good effect, and make sure that I'm just hitting those shells. I mean, you've got 248 pen on the standard rounds, which is fantastic on this tank. 310 pen on the premium rounds. If you can use this gun, you're going to deal so much damage so fast. I mean, you see, like, with this Panzer 7 here. It's like, hello, friend. Bang, bang, bang. Although we bounced that final shot. It's just a great thing. And in terms of equipment on this tank, I run optics, vert stabs, and a traction system, like I say. Traction system to get me up to that 60 kilometers an hour. And it really helps to have that mobility. Vert stabs to make the gun as good as possible, and optics to be able to spot for myself. I do run Track Mechanic, by the way, on the crew, because this tank is fat and it's massive. It's really easy to hit, and it gets tracked a lot. So I just want to make sure that I'm not going to be getting tracked, and that if I do get tracked and I've already burnt my repair kit, it will get put back on quicker. So in this game so far on Kaunas, we've managed to do 4.3k damage, 703 assistance, and we're in a bit of an awkward situation because they've won the 7-8 line, and unfortunately for me, I fired at that Leopard, and that meant that this Rheinmetall Panzerwagen actually got away with just driving out in the open because we got one shot into him and we couldn't finish him off. And unfortunately, that shell misses on the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen. It's like, oh, come on. We end up missing that shell, and it's like, well, come on, Mr. Panzerwagen, let me finish you off. But unfortunately, he's not having any of it. This is going to be one of those games where I sit there going, how did I survive all this? I have no idea. But we're going to reload the clip, because this T54 mod, we've also bled hit points really annoyingly, because we lost some hit points to that Rheinmetall Panzerwagen really annoyingly. We end up losing, again, like 700 hit points to him. Fortunately enough for me, this T54 mod 1, TVP, it's not TVP, this T54 mod 1 drives out and ends up missing us, and we get to clip him out with a little bit of help and shut him down there. We're at 5.2k damage rate, 197 assistance. I had one shell in the clip when we went for that reload, and I felt like I had to have the full clip, so I just went for the full reload to make sure. Naturally, this tank reloads really quickly, so I had to have the full clip to get rid of that guy. This Kramvarn comes over and I'm like, oh god, I am so dead. But no, I'm not. He managed to snapshot us there as he came over the ridge. And we managed to dump the clip into him really quickly and kill him. But I'm still not sure how he didn't fire and kill us. Because we can get 2 shots into him for every shell that he fires with his intraclip, because his intraclip's long. And I was kind of surprised. I thought, oh, well, I'm going to get 2 shots into this guy before I die. But maybe it was just, it took him that long to adjust to the fact that I was there, because he just RBRT'd us, that I got really lucky and I managed to shut him down. Again, it's one of those games that I sit there and go, how am I alive? You know? we go for the full reload anyway. We've only got heat left. Well, we've got 2 rounds of APCR. There's no point loading that. So we've got heat left. So I'm loading that clip. I'll just see where the TD and the light tank are. They do get spotted over there. So I decide, okay, I'm going to go around this way so that we can try and not get spotted and get shut down. And by doing this, maybe the artillery is in this corner because our team actually has pushed through the JK, and I'm thinking, well, I think the artillery might be over here then. If they've got through that JK and not spotted it, maybe we'll get lucky and find him somewhere around this corner. So we're going to go spot round here, and we do manage to spot the Object 261 there, and we get a nice shot in to finish him on the move, which is kind of lucky, but it is what it is. Finish with the victory, 5 kills, 6.5k damage, 1300 assistance, ace tanker, the Confederate, the high caliber, 2,000 base XP, a really great game for the Skoda T50. Honestly, an absolutely fantastic tank. It is so much fun. I've always loved that tank so much. And to me, it was always just better than the tier 10 because it was a tier lower. And it had a lot of the strength of the tier 10, but without that extra shell. And basically, really, what always annoyed me is that extra shell you gain on this tank meant that you stuck around for that extra few seconds, and that a lot of the time could be the difference between taking a hit and not, pretty much. But we're on to the tier 10 now, which is, you know, the pinnacle of the line. This is the tank that you aim for when you decide to start grinding the line. And this tank did receive some love in the Reforge, which is fantastic. Its clip rate, so its intra-clip reload, got rebuffed back up to what it used to be. So it went from 1.7 seconds back to the 1.5 seconds, which it never made sense why it got nerfed to that. And then they released the machine at the same time with the same old intra clip. So that's great. It got its reload buff from 28 seconds to 26.5, which is fantastic, which gave it that better DPM, and they gave it far more ammo, so you don't really run out of ammo. But that intra clip reload was it just never made sense that the machine had the same gun with that old school intraclip and this didn't. And this tank arguably needed it more than the machine because, well, the machine has armour, this doesn't. So the real strength of the tank is being able to dump the clip as fast as possible and get out of dodge. And if anything looks at you, they will pen you, right? So, yeah, that was really nice. And having that reload buff as well was just an extra boon. Did it really need the reload buff as well? Probably not. The intraclip reload was probably enough, but it is what it is. We'll take everything we can get, right? We'll take everything we can get. But this is what you're seeing against this waffle is where the TVP is great, right? Like any autoloader, you catch something out, you go bang, 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 and before they know it, they've lost loads of hit points, and it's great. In terms of equipment, by the way, on the TVP 50/51, I use the same crew as the one you saw in the Skoda T50, but equipment I change out. I don't run a traction system because I'm not really bothered about going. I think 60 kilometers an hour for me for this tank is good enough, and I want to make sure that I can stay on spotter for longer. So I actually run a camo net instead of the traction system, and that knocks my still concealment down to 300 meters without a crew. If they put a crew in, it's like 290 something or 290 something like that, which is absolutely fantastic. That helps me stay unspotted in a lot of situations, which is why I like it, because that way I can, you know, be able to spot for myself in a lot of situations, use bushes and not get spotted when I'm firing, and be able to, you know, stay unspotted for longer while dumping a clip, which obviously helps my survivability and helps me do more damage. And then obviously vert stabs and optics the same as the Skoda T50, just to make the gun as good as possible and then make the view range as good as possible on this tank. So this tank does have a premium skin, which is what you're seeing as well on this tank. Looks pretty decent. I'm not really the big fan of the blades on the front, but for the most part, the rest of the skin I really like. And yeah, the TVP 50/51, like I like the tank. I do think it's pretty solid. I just always prefer the tier 9, and I think I'll always prefer the tier 9. So right here, by the way, is why that camo net, he nearly blind-fired me there, is why that camo net is fantastic for this tank. Because if I did not have the camo net there, he would have spotted me. There is no doubt in my mind he would have spotted me there. So I was quite fortunate that, well, not quite fortunate, that's why I like having the camo net for that sort of situation. Because if that waffle had spotted me, he would have been able to deal a terrific amount of damage into me, and that wouldn't have been good, right? So far in this game on Siegfried Line, we're up to 5,300 damage. We're just looking for some shots into this TNH 105, 1000, and we just couldn't make out where the TNH was through the fire, and there was a big bunker in the way. It was really confusing, but that fire had me done there. But we fortunately enough managed to get the kill on him, and now we're just waiting for the reload. And this IS-3 is my next target. Having that 1200 clip is nice, though, as opposed to the 960 clip that the Skoda T50 has, because you can do far more damage to the enemy. Well, naturally, you take far more of the hit points, which is nice. And like I say, having that inch clip is great, because you do deal the damage really quickly. It's always nice to conserve your hit points for the end of the game to be able to clean up even more effectively. But if you can do stuff like what I did to that IS-3, where you trade one hit and deal 1200 to them, that is always great, like it is in any autoloader. Unfortunately, though, I didn't get the first shot in, only tracked him, but we did manage to clip the rest of them in. But now we have another clip loaded. We can actually fully clip out this Panzerjäger. Unfortunately, just as we fire the shot there, we get shut down by the Brask on the move. We do get another shot, well, the last shot in the clip, into the artillery there, and we're up to, just like that, in the blink of an eye, we're up to 7.7k damage, 1299 assistance, and we nearly reloaded again with another clip, and we're going after the damage. There's this IS-3 in the middle, like you can see here, and there's still a tank destroyer and a heavy tank somewhere, so I'm like, well, hello, Mr. IS-3, okay, you can shoot me, that's fine, but I'll just shut you down. And we do have 2 shells left. I'm thinking, do I reload right now? Yeah, screw it. Let's reload. So we may, because this tank reloads so quickly, you don't necessarily feel that downside of just deciding, yeah, I'm going to reload. Screw it. What's the worst that can happen? And we reload there. The Turan gets shut down at K0, and I'm thinking, right, okay, can I get to this AMX-30 before I get shut down by my team? We're going to try and get there as quick as possible. This tank hits 60 kilometers an hour really easily. I mean, if you wanted to and you wanted to full go camo, you could put traction system on and get this thing up to 66 if you wanted to, because it would hit it. It's down to you. But unfortunately, we couldn't get there for the MX-30, and we finished the game with 5 kills, 8.2k damage, 1200 assistance, the ace tank of the high caliber, and 1636 base HP. A really nice game for the TVP 50/51. Honestly, an absolutely solid tank. The buffs to it are fantastic. It's pretty much what it needed to bring it, to just breathe more life into it again and unnerf, you know, take the unjustified nerfs it had a wee while ago back. And yeah, it's a great tank. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.